It was an abrupt end, but it was my choice. And also remember, it's not just the industry that changed. It's the person who goes into the industry at the age of 22 is not the person who doesn't want to be in the industry when they turn 46. So I was a very different person. The industry was very different. We were not in love with each other anymore.
Welcome to Second Act Stories. I'm your host, Scott Merritt.
And I'm Scott's co-host, Andy Levine. Today we're treading on familiar ground, something for both of us, a field we know well, someone who worked in the public relations industry.
That's right. So Sam McKinlay was a career PR pro with an unbelievable resume who eventually just fell out of love with the industry. And after doing some soul searching, she found her way to real estate, where in her very first year of her second act career, she wound up earning a Rookie of the Year accolade from the broker she worked for.
This sounds like a talented woman. Let's dig into her second act.
Sure, we started talking about the tough cycle of recessions she faced, trying to get started in her native England, and where she started off on an entirely different career path.
I was born in a recession in England in the 70s and then went to college during a recession and graduated in a horrific recession. I got into a university in London, and that was a 4-year program, and it was actually international hotel and catering management. So it was cooking and tourism and business, and I was in Nice in the south of France working in a hotel for a year.
What was it about hospitality?
It was literally, I didn't know what I wanted to study.
Relatable.
Yeah. So international hotel and catering management would have a job at the end of it. It was a fun course. There was wine tasting and cooking and, it's hands-on as well as intellectual with what's the social and environmental impact of tourism on places. And so there was it was a fascinating place to be.
Okay, so you mentioned that you wound up in Nice in the south of France.
Yeah, that was part of the university. You had to have an internship. So I was in Nice working in a hotel on Bay d'Anglais, in the kitchens and in the restaurant and places like that. So that was just part of the degree that I had to get.
Okay, so we can all assume that it was great because it was in Nice, right? But what was fun about the actual job? What about the industry? What did you learn by actively getting into it?
That I didn't want to do it, which is as valuable as learning what you do want to do. Particularly at that time, and I think I'm probably better at this now, I do not suffer fools gladly, and I do not suffer disrespect for people. I've always felt that was so classless when people are rude to waiters or people who are serving you in hotels. I found it very, very difficult to not be respected for the job that I was doing. So I learned that that was not what I wanted to do. And what I did perhaps want to do was public relations.
Where did that come from?
It was a friend of mine who told me about PR and thought that I might be good at it and that I might enjoy it. And I talked to my dad about it. He got me in touch with Susan Croft, who was working at Hill & Knowlton in London at the time. And she got me an internship. And it was fascinating and I loved it.
Okay, what did you work on?
I worked on the economic development for Wales, and it was 150 years ago, so I can't remember what else I worked on. But I do remember that one specifically because I'd never heard of anyone needing economic development public relations, and I knew nothing about Wales.
What did you love about it?
I loved the people, and that's always been huge for me with business. I loved the interest, the outreach, the research, learning about different industries.
Once her internship ended, Sam did not get a full-time job with Hill and Knowlton. Instead, she followed her mother and her stepfather to the United States, and she relocated to Florida, which really wasn't a great fit for her.
Florida is not my place. So I literally looked around and thought, where do I want to live in the States? And I fell in love with Atlanta. Luckily, there was a Hill and Knowlton office here. And so I applied, and I was lucky enough to get a job with them.
Thus began the official PR career.
Mm-hmm.
And what were you doing there? What was awesome about it?
It was a really exciting time. So it was the turn of the millennial. We're just going into 2000, and we were booming. Hill and Knowlton was booming. I did some really fun PR, but it's like you would get up at 4 a.m. to fax press releases so that they would be the first things on people's desks. It was fun and slow moving, and PR people were valued because they did provide news, and there were a ton of outlets. I worked on the Gay Pride, which was fascinating.
Sam really found her groove in the PR industry. She moved from Hill and Knowlton to another Atlanta agency, and then she was recruited to an in-house position at Philips Consumer Electronics, where she helped the company to launch the 42-inch flat-screen TV to the market.
And this was a time when a 42-inch flat screen was $12,000.
Right.
And at the time, it was more of an aspirational purchase. So my thought was, and this was probably built on my Gay Pride experience, that the flat screen TVs are going to be great for people who don't have a lot of space, great for people who have a lot of money, and that obviously is a huge, wide swath. But I focused on the LGBT, what was just LGB at the time, in New York, thinking at the time they were dual incomes or people with no children. And so I put on a large event. I wanted to get Elton John because obviously he was huge in that community. And I thought, well, the only way I can do it is if I raise money for his charity. So I contacted his charity, and we put on a very large event in a space in New York. And so we had this incredible party, which got a ton of media.
Sam moved on to a PR leadership role, launching Song, Delta's high-style, low-cost airline, where she had an opportunity to apply a new level of creativity that helped generate positive press and build the brand.
I did a random acts of kindness program where the flight attendants, if they saw somebody doing something nice for somebody else, they would get a free ticket to fly anywhere on Song. And that's directly talking to the people, doing a surprise and delight, but also getting the media attention too. So it was those different elements.
Another agency job followed, but a slowdown in the economy and a PR mentality that just wasn't adapting to a new, faster way to do business led her to take matters into her own hands. Sam launched her own boutique PR firm, Anthill Communications, and she had a specific plan.
My aim was to do it for 5 years and then to sell, which is exactly what I did. It was very stressful because of my young kids. And so it was a time where I was balancing an awful lot of stuff. I was also looking after very talented people, but people who needed a lot of emotional hand-holding. And if I was to do it again, I would not have become as motherly as I was with my team. I'm an empath, and I tend to take on people's emotions and fix it and make them happy. I wanted to do the opposite of everything I'd seen in the agency world. I paid extraordinarily well. I did all the benefits, large Christmas bonuses, half days on Fridays, unlimited vacation time, and then also had this motherly role as well. And I did learn a valuable lesson in that. If you give too much to employees, and this is going to sound awful, but if you are over generous at the beginning, you don't really have anywhere to go after that.
So you did wind up selling.
Mm-hmm.
And where did that bring you?
So that brought me to a company that didn't have a PR presence in Atlanta. So it was a company that was trying to break into Atlanta. They had purchased an advertising agency, and I moved over there, and it was extraordinarily exciting.
I believe you had a fairly successful run there.
Yeah. We were very lucky. We won a big account very quickly, and of course, I brought over the accounts that I had, and they stayed with us, and we had a brilliant team. We were lucky, and we had a lot of fun. The difficulty that we had at the beginning, and I think this happens a lot when companies merge, we did have differences in corporate culture. And so the leniencies and the way of working that I'd had at Anthill did not gel with this new company. And there was a lot of negativity around that. And rather than have the very typical mentality that I have of being open and honest, it sort of festered. And I changed to accommodate that. But very early on, there were rumblings of discontent with the corporate cultures.
So how long did it take for that to manifest into something that wound up being a substantial change in your life?
It was pretty immediate, but we were the new shiny toy. So it wasn't terrible. And I was also under the impression that I would be able to manage it.
And so at some point, there was a break from that agency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was when you wake up in the morning and you do not want to get out of bed, it's not good. And then when you keep going, you keep doing it anyway. Somebody once told me you can't separate your mind from your heart. And I think that's so true. And I was still going and I was pushing, and I began to become ill, like strangely ill. Towards the end, I was ill all the time. I got shingles, for one, which is very typical if you're stressed. But then I would get these peculiar headaches, and I'd go to the doctor and they wouldn't be able to know, they didn't know what it was. And then I'd get really strange tummy aches, and I would get these random illnesses. And I truly believe it was just my body saying, you don't want to do this. And this is making you extremely unhappy. And if you're not going to listen to your own head and your own emotions, we're going to make it so you don't go in. And that, of course, was not good for my team either. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to do PR and marketing.
So you saw the industry through a pretty significant transition, and then your time working in PR came to an end. Was it an abrupt end? Was it a rocky landing?
It was an abrupt end, but it was my choice. And also remember, it's not just the industry that changed. It's the person who goes into the industry at the age of 22 is not the person who doesn't want to be in the industry when they turn 46. So I was a very different person. The industry was very different. We were not in love with each other anymore. I think I did my 2 weeks and I left. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I knew I wanted to do something totally different.
Walk me through the stress of leaving a revenue-bearing career and just not having anything lined up next.
I've always taken a leap. I did have savings. I would not have done it if I didn't have savings because I've got 2 children and I was a single mum. And I had never taken time off before. So when I had my babies, I didn't take time off. I was the breadwinner, and I had to work. So I took some time off, and I actually took a year off, and relied on the savings that I had, and wanted to take that time to really think, what do I want to do? In the meantime, I had met and fallen in love with the guy I'm with now, and he is very, very good at construction. So I purchased some homes. He renovated them. We sold them. We had some income coming in there.
You now have dipped your toe in the real estate water, though, and it sounds like something connected.
Yeah, yeah. So I realized I loved it. Loved houses, and loved the marketing of houses. And so I took my real estate license, became a realtor, but have done it in a different way. So my focus is very much on a concierge experience. So I do not sell more than, I take on 3 or 4 clients at each time. And I am totally devoted to them. I'll do everything from, I sold a house recently and I was in the garden doing the landscaping because they did not have the funds to do the landscaping, but I knew it was essential to do to be able to sell the house and to sell it for more. And I love landscaping. So I was physically doing that. I've done things where I will make furniture for part of the staging. I do the marketing, so pitching homes to publications, so taking it, using and leveraging the experience that I had in marketing, right down to the strategy of who will buy this home. What are they listening to? What is going to incite them to come and see it? And what are the benefits of this home? Now, taking into consideration as well, a home is a product, so you're going to market it as you would a product. But
Right.
it's also the biggest investment anyone is going to make. It's got emotional connections to it from the family that has lived there and grown up. Often people sell homes because of huge life changes, such as divorce or marriage or a new baby or their kids leaving. So the psychology of the people that I work with for buying or selling their homes, as well as the financial elements, the legalities of it, the negotiation of it, the managing your co-agent, it's taking all of the elements from my past experience and using them with the work that I'm doing right now.
There seem to be an awful lot of similarities between the two.
There are.
What makes it better than PR or working in a marketing or marketing agency, in your opinion?
It's taking all the best bits of the PR and the marketing activities and using them for a really good reason.
Before the big crash in 2008, it was going gangbusters, and you couldn't keep a house on the market for more than 5 minutes before there were 10 offers on it.
Mm-hmm.
So every single person that didn't know what to do was just going and getting a real estate license.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because it was easy money, it was easy work.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't really have to work very hard. All you had to do was put your name on something and you were going to make a commission. That's different now.
It's not really, because real estate goes through cycles, as everything does. And when things are good, you get a lot of people in the industry. And when things are bad, you get a lot of people dropping out. The interest rates were extraordinarily low, and so more people came into the industry then. This continued until about the middle of last year, when interest rates started going up. And right now, homes are on the market longer because of the interest rates. But and so people are leaving the industry.
How do you maintain a level of success in a market that's getting harder to be successful in?
You need to adapt exactly the same way as in 2008, when I'm like, well, the world is changing, so we're going to become a different type of agency. You need to adapt. You need to have more innovative programs about how you can encourage people, if they want to move, how they can do that. taking into consideration that interest rates are not going to be coming down. But people still need homes. And they still, I mean, we've got 150,000 people moving into Atlanta every single year. So we're a different market as well.
Right.
So people are always going to need to have a home, to move. They're going to go through the same changes in life. So it's a matter of communication, marketing in a much smarter way.
How do you build trust with potential customers when you're entering the industry later in your career? Like you're not just out of college.
There are a lot of realtors who are like secondhand car salesmen. And the only way I really feel like you can build trust is be authentic and be yourself and tell people your experience and your knowledge. I am older, but I have bought homes and I have sold homes and I know construction, so I can walk into a building or a home and say, this is rubbish, or actually, no, this is going to be a good buy. And also not being greedy. I've had clients who wanted to put their homes on the market, and we did so. And there's this one couple in particular I was thinking about, and they were going through such a tough time personally with family and all this sort of stuff. And I said to them, I don't want you to sell your home right now. And they're like, well, why? I said, your home is such a stable part of your life. Everything else in your life is unstable. Why would we want to sell this stability that you have right now? And they're like, well, I've never heard an agent saying to do that, particularly since you've done all the marketing. And I'm like, but for your benefit, I don't want to do this right now.
How does somebody who kind of knows that things are not exactly the way they love it identify when it's time to make a break from a career?
Every job is going to go through periods where you're not having a fantastic time. And sometimes you stick it out and it gets better. Sometimes you become physically ill, as I did. And so it's different for everyone. I can only speak for myself, but it's scary. It's not all roses and hooray. It's absolutely terrifying. But if you have some financial support, either from your partner or from savings that you've had, that's really essential because that takes off a lot of the pressure. And I've always said to people, and I know this sounds a bit naughty, but look for a job whilst you're in a job.
So what advice would you give to somebody who's on the fence or seriously unhappy in the job that they have right now and kind of feels like they need to make a change, but is unsure of what to do next?
Stick it out if you can. And if you don't have that financial support, stick it out and have a really good think about what you want to do. And look at other options, other industries, just a ton of different, have a look at everything. And it's, as I said before, it's really valuable knowing what you don't want to do as much as what you do want to do. And if it's really unbearable, then leave, take some time off, work at a job that is not as mentally draining or time consuming. I've seen so many resumes. If there was a gap and I said, well, you worked at Starbucks, and that person said, yeah, I was really unhappy and I wanted to think about what I wanted to do and I wanted to take some time and this was how I supported myself, I'd be like, fantastic.
Well, Scott, thank you for another great episode. I'm going to start out with a very specific question about Sam. Leaper or planner?
It's funny you ask because I know that we have all these statistics that we've shared about leapers and planners. And Sam and I had a bit of an offline conversation about those statistics. And she will tell you that she's a planner, but boy, does she have a lot of leaper characteristics.
It struck me as I listened to this that she's a leaper, but a leaper with a financial cushion behind her.
Yeah, a leaper with a plan, right? So there's this Venn diagram, leapers and planners, and there's probably a little bit of the overlapping shaded circle where maybe Sam lives in that little overlap. But yeah, she'll tell you that she's a planner, but she also makes a lot of leaper moves.
Okay, well, just not to belabor this too much, but there was no plan to end up in the real estate industry is the sense I got from that. It sounds like that was just serendipity finding that, yes?
Yeah, so it was interesting because the break from PR was just a clean break without an actual plan of what to do next. And maybe by happenstance, maybe by divine intervention, she winds up meeting someone and falling in love with someone who loves to do construction and renovate houses. And so together they bought a couple of houses, renovated them, sold them, and it was like, oh my God, where has this been all my life? So she ran at that moment full force into real estate, and she has not looked back.
All right, sounds good. Should we wrap this one up?
Sure, you can learn more about Sam or even work with her on your next home sale or purchase by visiting her website at Sam McKinlay, McKinlay.com.
We hope you'll keep listening and subscribe to Second Act Stories on your favorite podcast app. Like us on Facebook, follow us on LinkedIn, and share us with your friends. Don't go away. There are more Second Act Stories just around the corner.